I was just doing homework, or at least pretending to, when she closed the door behind her. That sound, the soft click of it, didn't mean anything at first. It was just a door shutting. But somehow, it made the air heavier. The room wasn't mine. It was the back office of the small auto repair shop where I helped part-time after classes. The boss let me use the desk when the bays were full and the noise was too much. My laptop sat open between stacks of invoices and grease-stained forms, the smell of oil hanging in the air. The fluorescent light above buzzed faintly, and the heater coughed out uneven warmth. She was there to pick up her car, an old blue sedan that still looked better cared for than most people. Mrs. Hale. That's what everyone called her. The name fit. Careful, composed, a little distant. She came in every few months, always alone, always polite. I'd never really spoken to her beyond the usual, but everyone in the shop noticed her. You couldn't not. She had that kind of presence that made you fix your posture without realizing it. Not because she was intimidating, more because she carried herself like someone who had already learned not to waste words. "Is Charlie around?" she asked, scanning the room. I looked up from my screen, pushing my hair out of my eyes. "He's under the Civic right now. Should be a few minutes." She smiled, a quick, professional one, and stepped inside. The cold followed her for a moment. Then the door closed again. That's when I heard it, that soft click that somehow stayed in my head. She leaned against the counter, glancing at the clock like she was late for something she didn't want to attend. Her eyes flicked toward me. "You're doing homework here?" I laughed, a bit too quickly. "Trying to. It's quieter here than at home." She gave a small hum, halfway between agreement and amusement. "I can see that." The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable, not exactly, but it was thick. She noticed the open textbook beside my laptop. "Psychology. A class I took because I thought it'd be easy." "You studying the human mind?" she asked, tilting her head slightly. I shrugged. "Trying to. Mostly I just end up overthinking my own." That made her laugh, a quiet, genuine sound. It was the first time I'd heard it. She didn't laugh like someone who did it often. The heater clicked off, and the room seemed to shrink. The sounds from the garage faded into muffled echoes, a wrench clattering, a radio faintly playing an old song. I watched her trace her finger along the counter absent-mindedly, her nails neat and short, her movements slow, deliberate. There was something about the way she occupied silence, like she'd made peace with it a long time ago. I wasn't sure if I admired that or found it terrifying. Then she looked up at me again, and for a split second, I forgot what I was supposed to be doing. Her eyes weren't sharp or cold. They were tired, but not defeated. Like someone who had seen too much and learned to keep it quiet. "You must be Charlie's nephew," she said. "Yeah, Ethan. Ethan," she repeated softly, as if testing how it sounded. Then she nodded once, almost to herself. The moment passed as quickly as it arrived. Charlie's voice called from the garage, and she straightened her coat. "Tell him I'll be outside," she said, already turning toward the door. She paused before opening it, just a small hesitation, almost invisible, and then looked back. "You're better at listening than you think," she said, her voice low, not quite a compliment, not quite a tease. Then the door opened, and she was gone. I stared at the empty space she left behind, the faint trace of her perfume, the quiet hum of the heater starting again, and realized I hadn't taken a single note from my textbook. But all night, I kept hearing that door close again, and her voice, soft, certain, like it had settled somewhere I couldn't reach. It had been 2 weeks since she'd said my name like that, quietly, as if she wasn't sure she should. I told myself I'd forgotten it, but I hadn't. She came back on a rainy Thursday, this time not for her car, but to ask a favor. Charlie was out getting parts, and I was sweeping the floor when she walked in holding a folder pressed against her chest. "Ethan," she said, and that was all it took to make my grip on the broom loosen. "Do you still have that portable printer in the office? Mine's dead, and I need something signed today." I nodded, trying not to sound too eager. "Yeah, sure. It still works, most days." We sat in the same cramped office from before, the rain ticking against the window like a nervous habit. I helped her plug in the printer, her perfume faint but unmistakable, something understated, like jasmine and paper. She sat across the desk, pulling out a stack of typed pages, her movements precise but slower than usual. "I'm sorry," she said, not looking up. "This isn't your job. I just didn't want to wait." "It's fine," I said. "I'm just glad it's not another carburetor." That earned a small laugh, softer this time, like she was careful not to let it escape too fully. The printer hummed to life, and she reached over to straighten a crooked page. Her hand brushed mine. Barely, but it was enough for me to notice the faint tremor in her fingers. She pulled back quickly, her expression unreadable. "Cold hands," she murmured, rubbing them together. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come out right. So I just watched her instead. The rain had darkened the window behind her, outlining her face in that dull gray light. She looked tired. Not the kind of tired you fix with sleep, but the kind that comes from holding too much inside. "Rough day?" I asked. She hesitated, pen stilling in her hand. "Rough year," she said finally, her tone almost casual, almost. Then she seemed to regret saying it, shifting back in her chair, putting distance between us. The printer spat out the last page. She signed it neatly, her handwriting firm and elegant. When she handed the papers back, her sleeve slipped slightly, revealing the faintest bruise on her wrist, small, circular, too deliberate to ignore. She caught me looking. For a second, something flickered across her face. Not fear, not shame, just the awareness of being seen. "It's nothing," she said quietly, rolling the sleeve down again. I didn't press. I couldn't. Outside, thunder rolled low and distant. She stood, gathering the papers, and gave me a polite nod. "Thank you, Ethan. You've been very kind." Her voice broke just slightly on the last word, enough that I knew she hated how it sounded. I opened my mouth to tell her it was no problem, that I didn't mind helping, but she was already turning toward the door. As she reached for the handle, she paused. The same pause as before. The same tiny hesitation that felt too full to be meaningless. Then she said, without turning around, "You shouldn't always be the one listening, you know." The door opened, and the rain swallowed her whole. I stood there with the faint warmth of her touch still on my hand, wondering if she meant I shouldn't listen to her, or if she meant I already was. It was a week before I saw her again. Charlie had thrown a small after-hours gathering for clients. Nothing formal, just coffee, pie, and too many stories about carburetors. She came late, right as the rain started again, wearing a simple gray coat that looked too thin for the weather. Most people left by 8. By 9, only she and I were left, helping Charlie pack things away. He ducked into the garage to lock up, leaving the two of us in the small office. The overhead light flickered, throwing soft shadows against the walls. "Thank you for staying," she said, stacking paper cups into a neat tower. "You didn't have to." I shrugged. "Didn't want you to be the last one here." Her eyes met mine, and something in them faltered. Not vulnerability exactly, but an unguarded moment, like she was too tired to hold herself perfectly together. The silence that followed felt different this time. Heavier. She poured herself the last of the coffee, even though it had gone cold. I could tell she wasn't drinking it for the taste. "Do you ever feel like," she started, then stopped, shaking her head. "Never mind." "What?" She smiled, small, almost embarrassed. "Like you're watching your life happen from somewhere else. Just observing, not living." Her words hit closer than I expected. "Yeah," I said. "All the time." Something softened in her expression, a quiet acknowledgement between strangers who shouldn't understand each other this well. She looked down at her hands, steady now, but tense, then tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. We both reached for the same napkin she'd dropped on the counter. My hand brushed hers. Neither of us moved right away. The touch was small, meaningless, except it wasn't. The sound of Charlie's laughter echoed from the garage, snapping the moment in half. She pulled her hand back quickly, her cheeks flushing just slightly, the way warmth creeps into skin when you've been caught thinking something you shouldn't. Her phone buzzed on the counter. She glanced at it and froze. The name flashing on the screen, David, lingered longer than it should have. She silenced the call without answering. I pretended not to notice. She didn't thank me for it, but the way her shoulders eased told me she was grateful. When Charlie came back in, She was already putting on her coat. I should go, she said, her voice carefully even again. Wait, I said before thinking. It's still raining. I can walk you to your car. She hesitated at the doorway, the rain drumming hard against the glass. That's kind, she said quietly. But better if you don't. She smiled, the kind that hides something instead of revealing it, and stepped out into the storm. I stood there long after she left, watching her blurred shape move toward her car, umbrella trembling in the wind. She paused once before getting in, just long enough for me to think she might look back. She didn't. She came by the shop again the following Tuesday, after closing this time. I was alone, finishing up inventory. The door chimed softly, and for a second I thought it was Charlie. But then I saw her. No coat this time, just a dark sweater and the same tired calm she always carried, though tonight it looked heavier. I didn't mean to interrupt, she said, pausing at the doorway. You're not. She hesitated, then stepped in, closing the door behind her. That same quiet click again. It sounded different now, almost deliberate. I shouldn't be here, she said, her tone almost apologetic. Then why are you? Her eyes flicked up, surprised by the question, or maybe by how softly I asked it. I don't know, she said finally. I was driving, and I just ended up here. I nodded, pretending to understand. Maybe I did. She moved closer, stopping near the counter, hands tucked into her sleeves. The light from the desk lamp made her look both older and softer. Every line on her face telling a story she'd never say aloud. For a while, we said nothing. The hum of the fridge filled the space between us. She watched me write something in the ledger, her gaze fixed, like she wanted to say something but couldn't figure out how. Do you ever wonder, she began slowly, if you've already lived the best parts of your life and just didn't realize it? I looked up. Sometimes. Mostly when I'm not supposed to. Her lip twitched, not quite a smile. You shouldn't talk like that at your age. Why not? Because it sounds too familiar, she said. The silence stretched again. This time, neither of us tried to fill it. I could hear her breathing, steady, quiet. The sound of the clock ticking somewhere behind her. Then she sighed. Ethan, what are we doing? The way she said it, soft, bewildered, like she was asking herself, made my chest tighten. I didn't answer right away. I couldn't, because I didn't know either. She looked at me, and for once, she didn't look guarded. Her eyes were glassy raw. You listen like someone who's already lost something, she said. And I keep talking to you like it won't matter. I swallowed. Maybe it doesn't. She laughed under her breath, not out of humor, but disbelief. Don't say that. I mean, I started but stopped. The truth was, I didn't know what I meant. She took a slow step back, shaking her head. This isn't fair. To you. To me. We're just pretending not to see what's happening. Her words hung there, trembling in the air between us. I wanted to say her name, but it caught in my throat. She was already turning away, hand on the doorknob. Then, quietly, almost too quietly, she said, You make me remember what it feels like to be seen. And I don't know if I can survive that twice. The door opened, and I didn't follow. It had been 3 days since that night, the one that ended with her voice trembling in the doorway. I'd replayed it too many times, trying to make sense of what she meant, what she didn't say. Then, out of nowhere, she texted, Asterisk, can you stop by tomorrow? I have something for you. Asterisk, her house sat at the edge of town, a small brick place half hidden by trees. I told myself I was just returning a borrowed wrench she'd left at the shop, but that was a lie. When she opened the door, she looked different, not polished like usual. Her hair was pulled back loosely, no makeup, a mug in her hand. It was the first time she looked her age, and somehow that made her even more striking. Come in, she said softly. The living room smelled like rain and coffee. A small record player hummed in the corner, some old jazz tune playing so faintly it felt like memory. She motioned for me to sit, then went to a drawer and came back with an envelope. This was a mistake, she said, handing it to me, but you should see it. Inside was a photograph, a man, maybe in his 30s, sitting on the hood of a car I recognized instantly. The same blue sedan. He had her smile. That's my brother, I said before I could stop myself. She blinked. You knew him? I nodded slowly. He taught me how to change brake pads. Back when I was 14. He used to hang around the shop before he moved away. Her lips parted, but no words came. She sat down, hard, like her knees couldn't hold her. He passed away 2 years ago, she whispered. You remind me of him. Not just how you look, how you are. The room felt smaller, heavier. Something inside me shifted, not away from her, but deeper into the quiet place between us. I thought maybe that's why I kept coming back, she said. That maybe it wasn't about you, but about missing him. I wanted to believe that. She looked at me then, really looked, searching for the line between memory and presence, guilt and need. I don't know what this is anymore, she admitted. But every time I walk away, it feels like I'm erasing him again. I didn't move. I didn't trust myself to. My throat was tight, my heartbeat loud enough to fill the silence she left. Finally, I said, maybe it's not about replacing anyone. Maybe it's just about not being alone when it rains. Her eyes filled, not tears exactly, just the shine of someone who's been holding back too long. She smiled faintly, shaking her head. You shouldn't know how to say things like that. I wanted to answer, to tell her I didn't, that it just came out, but she reached across the table, her fingers grazing the edge of my hand, stopping just short of touching. And in that single inch of distance, everything between us changed, quietly, irreversibly. It was late, too late for visitors, when she came again. I'd just locked up, the streetlights humming in the mist, when her car pulled into the lot. The blue sedan idled there for a moment before the headlights dimmed. She stepped out slowly, holding something in her hand. The photograph, folded now, edges softened. I shouldn't be here, she said, though she didn't sound like she meant it. I leaned against the doorframe, hands in my pockets. You keep saying that. I know. She smiled faintly, the kind of smile people give when they're already too far in to turn back. We went inside. The shop was quiet except for the ticking clock and the rain tapping gently against the windows. She set the photo on the counter between us. The man, her brother, my teacher, stared out from it like some silent witness neither of us could ignore. I've been thinking, she said, about what I said last time. About him. About you. I waited. I don't think it's just that you remind me of him, she continued, her voice trembling slightly. I think you remind me that I'm still here, that I didn't disappear with him. She looked down, exhaling hard. And that's terrifying. I didn't move closer, but I wanted to. The space between us felt smaller than ever, full of everything unsaid. I don't want to make this something it shouldn't be, she said. But I also don't want to pretend it isn't something. Her honesty hit harder than any confession could have. There was no music, no grand gesture. Just her standing there, stripped of all the control she usually held. I don't know what to do with this, I admitted. But I don't want it to disappear. She nodded, her eyes glassy but steady. Then don't. We didn't move for a long time. The rain grew softer, a slow rhythm against the tin roof. Finally, she reached across the counter, her hand brushing mine. Not searching, not claiming, just resting there. Her skin was warm. My pulse slowed. We stayed like that, saying nothing, breathing the same thick air that seemed to hold its breath with us. It wasn't love, not in the way stories pretend. It was recognition. Two people too tired to lie to themselves anymore. After a while, she whispered, "You make it quieter." I wasn't sure if she meant the room, her mind, or the ache that lived somewhere behind her ribs. Maybe all of it. Her thumb moved slightly, the smallest motion, a question and an answer at once. When she finally pulled her hand back, it wasn't to leave, just to wipe her eyes. We sat there until the rain stopped, neither of us saying goodbye. There was nothing left to say, anyway. It's strange how quietly things fade. Not like a door slamming shut, but like a room emptying of sound. Months have passed since that last night in the shop, yet sometimes I still catch myself turning at the sound of a car pulling up, half expecting her to step out. We didn't end so much as settle. After that evening, there were no more late visits, no long pauses at the door. She came by once, just to return a wrench I'd left in her car. We stood in the sunlight, no rain this time, talking like two people who had finally learned how to be gentle with silence. She looked lighter, not happy exactly, but unburdened, like she'd stopped fighting herself for once. "You were right," she told me. Sometimes it's not about replacing anyone. Sometimes it's just about being seen, even for a moment. I didn't have an answer. I didn't need one. Since then, I've noticed how different everything feels. The shop, the quiet hum of the heater, even the way I move through the day. She didn't change my life, not in the way stories like to promise. But she changed the way I listen, the way I stay. I think that's what she gave me, permission to notice the small, unspoken things. The trembling pause before truth. The weight of being looked at by someone who really sees you. Sometimes I still see her car around town, the blue paint catching light like old glass. She always waves. I always wave back. That's enough. People think love is about beginnings, the spark, the first touch, the chase. But maybe it's also about the things that never quite happened, the quiet connections that don't need a label to matter. Because when I think of her now, it isn't with longing or regret. It's with something steadier, gratitude, maybe, for the silence we shared, for the honesty that hurt but didn't destroy, for the lesson that not every story has to end with forever to mean something. She once told me she was scared of being seen again. I think, in some quiet way, we both were. And yet, for a little while, we let ourselves be. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?